The first time my future mother-in-law called me too fat for white, I thought she was joking. The second time, I realized she wasn't. The third time, I realized she didn't just hate my body. She hated not being in control. And when she finally crossed the line and threw my wedding dress in the trash because she refused to watch her son marry a whale in cheap lace, I stopped crying long enough to make a different decision. If she wanted to control the wedding so badly, she could show up to the wrong one. My name is Hannah. I'm 26, from Georgia, and I love my now husband, Ethan, more than I've ever loved anyone who leaves wet towels on the bed. We met in college. He was the cute lab partner who always volunteered to dissect things so I wouldn't faint. I was the girl who brought color-coded notes and granola bars to every study session. Within 6 months we were inseparable. Within 2 years we were sharing an off-campus apartment. Within 4 years he was down on one knee in our favorite park, holding a modest but beautiful ring and shaking like a leaf. I said yes so fast I almost forgot to let him finish his speech. There was just one complication. Her name was Linda, Ethan's mom. Linda is the kind of Southern mother who thinks her son is both a gift from God and her personal property. She's not evil. At least she doesn't think she is. She's just intense. When we first started dating, she'd jokingly refer to me as the girl stealing my baby. At family dinners, she'd put twice as much food on my plate as everyone else's and say things like, "Gotta keep Ethan's girlfriend well fed." And then later, "You sure you need seconds, honey? That dress looks tight already." For context, I'm a size 14. Not tiny, not huge. Just me. I've always struggled with body image, like most women I know, but by my mid-20s I'd made a kind of uneasy peace with my curves. Linda seemed determined to destroy that peace. Under the guise of caring, she'd send me articles about wedding diets and how to drop 2 dress sizes fast. She'd pinch my arm and say, "You have such a pretty face. Once you slim down a bit, you'll be unstoppable." Ethan would roll his eyes and tell her to knock it off. "Mom, she's beautiful," he'd say. "Leave her alone." Linda would pout. "I just want her to feel her best on the big day," she'd say. "No need to get defensive." That's the thing about people like Linda. They can stab you with a smile and then act offended when you bleed on their floor. When we got engaged, I naively thought things might improve. We'd be official then. I'd be her future daughter-in-law, not just the girl dating her son. In some ways it did change. She got worse. Within a week of the proposal, she'd made a Pinterest board called Ethan and Amp, Hannah's perfect wedding, and filled it with photos of country clubs, white-gloved servers, and brides who all looked like they hadn't eaten since 2014. "We have to book the gardens at Oak Hill," she said over brunch. "It's where my sorority sister's daughter got married. Everyone important gets married there." "The gardens are beautiful," I admitted. "But they're also expensive." "Oh, don't worry about cost," she said airily. "Your father-in-law and I will cover the venue. It's our gift." It sounded generous. What she didn't say out loud, but made very clear in the weeks that followed, was, if we pay, we call the shots. I had dreamed of a cozy rustic barn wedding. String lights. Wildflowers. A taco truck. Linda dreamed of a black tie event with a 5-course plated dinner and a 12-piece band. "Barn weddings are for Pinterest girls who marry farmers," she said, wrinkling her nose. "Ethan is a software engineer." "That doesn't make him allergic to wood," I said. She laughed like I'd said something adorable but wrong. "We'll do the barn thing for your baby shower," she said. "You can wear boots and a flower crown. The wedding needs to be classy." Ethan squeezed my hand under the table. "Let's at least go see the barn she likes," he said. "We can compare." Linda relented sort of. We visited my dream venue. A renovated barn with twinkle lights, long wooden tables, and a view of rolling fields. I fell in love instantly. Linda walked around with her mouth pinched tight. "Where would my friends park?" she whispered to Ethan. "In the dirt?" We visited the gardens at Oak Hill next. Gleaming marble floors. Chandeliers. Valets in little vests. It was beautiful. It also felt like it should smell like old money and judgment. Linda looked at me with a triumphant smile. "Now this," she said, "is a wedding." Ethan liked both. "I could see us getting married in either place," he said honestly. "They're just different vibes." The problem was, we weren't just weighing vibes. We were weighing control. If we chose the barn, we'd have to pay most of it ourselves. If we chose the gardens, his parents would write the check and hold the pen on everything else. We went with the gardens. I told myself it was practical. I told myself it was a compromise. Really, I was just postponing a war I didn't want to fight. Next came the dress. I'd been dreaming about that since I was 12, and tried on my aunt's gown in a mirror greasy with hairspray. I knew what I wanted, something romantic, with sleeves, that didn't make me feel like a sausage. Mom and my best friend Tasha were going to come shopping with me. Linda invited herself. Of course I have to see my future daughter-in-law find the dress, she said. It's a rite of passage. I didn't have the energy to argue. The boutique was small and cozy, run by a woman named Maria who made me feel instantly comfortable. What's your vision? She asked, handing me a glass of water. Comfortable and pretty, I said. Nothing too poofy. I want to be able to eat. Linda laughed a little too loudly. Well, we'll see about that, she said. We pulled options from the racks. I tried on a few that were clearly wrong mermaid cuts that hugged every insecurity, ball gowns that swallowed me whole. Then Maria brought in the one. An A-line dress with lace sleeves, a v-neck that didn't make me feel naked, and a skirt that skimmed my hips instead of strangling them. When I stepped out of the dressing room, Mom's eyes filled with tears. Tasha put her hands over her mouth. Oh my God, she said. That's it. That's the dress. I turned to the mirror. For the first time all day, I saw a bride and not a body to be fixed. I saw me. Then Linda spoke. It's nice, she said, pursing her lips. But don't you think it's a little forgiving? I repeated. You know, she said, making a vague gesture around her own tiny waist. A-line is what designers recommend when brides are carrying extra. My stomach dropped. Maria stepped in smoothly. A-line actually suits a lot of body types, she said. It's very classic. Linda nodded politely, then turned to me. Honey, it's your day, she said. But you only get one wedding dress. Are you sure you don't want something that encourages you to really stick to your diet? You've got 9 months. Imagine how stunning you'd be in something more fitted if you just Mom, Ethan's voice said from the doorway. He wasn't supposed to be there that day. He'd been dragged along by his dad to look at tuxes in the same shopping center and had apparently wandered over. He walked in, eyes wide as he saw me in the dress. Wow, he said, blowing out a breath. You look incredible. I blushed. Linda plastered on a smile. Doesn't she? She said brightly. We were just talking about how, with a few more pounds off, she could rock something even more spectacular. Ethan's expression darkened. She's spectacular now, he said. We love this one. Right, Han? I met his eyes. I thought about all the years I'd spent hating dressing rooms. About the way this dress made me feel like myself instead of a project. Right, I said. This is the one. Linda looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. But she didn't fight it outright. She just said, well, it's your day, in that tone that meant, and your mistake. I paid for the dress myself with savings from my job. I told myself that meant it would be safe. I was wrong. Over the next few months, Linda's comments got nastier. Any time I ate more than she thought I should, she'd poke my plate. Careful, she'd say. You don't want to have to let that dress out. When I skipped dessert, she'd say, good girl. The camera adds 10 pounds, you know. She'd send me texts like, found these, 10 bridal ab workouts you can do in bed. Winking face, I tried to laugh it off. Tasha told me I should shut it down harder. She's bullying you, she said. You wouldn't let a stranger talk to you like that. Why let her? Because she's Ethan's mom, I said. And she's paying for half the wedding. Tasha made a face. I get that, she said. But you know you're allowed to have boundaries even then, right? Intellectually, I knew. Emotionally, I felt like any pushback would turn into a nuclear war with Ethan in the middle. So I let the little cuts keep coming. Death by 1,000 helpful comments. Then she stopped being subtle. 3 months before the wedding, I had my final dress fitting. It still fit. Perfectly. Maria beamed. You did great, she said. No crashes, no last-minute diet disasters. Just you, looking gorgeous. I cried when I put it back on the hanger. The dress was more than fabric. It was proof that I didn't have to shrink to deserve this day. Mom offered to keep it at her house, but our guest room closet was bigger, and I liked the idea of being able to sneak peeks at it when I needed a morale boost. Are you sure? She asked. With Linda, she wouldn't, I said. Mom looked unconvinced. But I hung it in my closet, double-bagged, and tried to ignore the gnawing in my stomach. The next day, Linda came over to help with invitations. Ethan was at a bachelor party planning thing with his friends. It was just the two of us and an ocean of addressed envelopes. We made small talk. She commented on my choice of font, a little casual, don't you think? My flower selection. Wildflowers are nice for a Sunday picnic. And my hair, you're going to wear it up, right? Down makes your face look rounder. At some point, she asked to use the bathroom. It was down the hall from our bedroom. I didn't think anything of it. We finished the envelopes and she left with a tight hug and a "don't forget your diet starts Monday." I rolled my eyes and moved on. 2 days later, I went into my closet to look at the dress. The garment bag was gone. I froze. Maybe I'd moved it? I checked the guest room, the hall closet, under the bed. Nothing. My heart started pounding. I called Mom. Did you take my dress? I asked, voice shaky. What? No, she said. Why would I wait? When was the last time you saw it? Saturday, I said. I had the fitting. I brought it home. Linda was here Sunday. Call Ethan, she said, voice suddenly sharp. I did. Hey, he answered, distracted. Can I call you back? Where do you have my dress? I blurted. He went quiet. No, he said slowly. Why would I have your dress? My head spun. I thought about the timeline. Linda. Gone. A horrible suspicion crept into my brain. I grabbed my keys and drove to Ethan's parents' house. Linda opened the door wearing yoga pants and a fake smile. Hannah, she said. What a surprise. Where is it? I said. Her smile flickered. Where is what? She asked. My wedding dress, I said. It's missing. You were the last person here. Where is it? She exhaled, like she'd been waiting for this. Come in, she said. We went to the kitchen. There was a black trash bag by the back door. Cold dread settled in my stomach. She noticed my gaze and nudged it with her foot. If you're looking for that monstrosity, it's right there, she said. I stared at her. You? Threw it away? I whispered. She crossed her arms. I did you a favor, she said. You were too emotional to see it. That dress was not flattering. It made you look like a cake. A very big cake. I felt like she'd punched me. You had no right, I said, voice shaking. I paid for that dress. It was mine. And my son is mine, she snapped. I'm not going to sit there on his wedding day and watch him marry a woman who couldn't be bothered to lose a few pounds and chose a potato sack to hide in. I could barely breathe. You stole my dress and threw it in the trash, I said slowly, because you think I'm too fat to wear it. I am protecting you, she said. Protecting this family. People talk, Hannah. They will judge. You'll thank me later when you find something more appropriate. My hands shook. I grabbed the trash bag and opened it. My dress was inside. Wrinkled. Crumpled. Stained with something red, probably spaghetti sauce. Something in me broke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. More like a crack in a dam that had been holding back years of insults. I looked up at her. I'm done, I said. She frowned. Done with what? She said. Letting you talk to me like this, I said. Letting you control everything. Letting you treat me like I'm not good enough for your son. She rolled her eyes. Oh, grow up, she said. It's just a dress. We'll get another one. One that doesn't make you look like a before picture. I left. I took the ruined dress with me. I drove home on autopilot, tears blurring my vision. Ethan got there minutes after I did, called by his mom, no doubt with a very different version of events. He burst into our apartment, out of breath. Mom said you came over screaming about your dress, he said. What's going on? I pointed to the garbage bag on the couch. He opened it. His face drained of color. What happened? He whispered. Your mother, I said. She took it from our closet. She threw it away because she thinks I'm too fat and unflattering to wear it. He looked like he might be sick. She admitted that? He asked. Proudly, I said. Silence. Then I'll talk to her, he said. I'll make her apologize. We'll get you a new dress. I'll pay for it. I stared at him. This isn't about the dress anymore, I said. It's about your mom trying to control our entire wedding. Our entire marriage. He rubbed his face. I know, he said. I've been avoiding dealing with it, hoping she'd chill out. Clearly she hasn't. No, I said. She escalated. And if we let this go, she'll just keep going. He nodded slowly. What do you want to do? He asked. I took a deep breath. For starters, I said, we're not getting married at her country club anymore. At first, he thought I meant canceling the wedding. Do you still want to marry me? He asked, voice small. I took his hand. Yes, I said. More than ever. But I'm not walking down an aisle your mother picked for me, in front of people she invited, wearing a dress she approves of, while she sits in the front row like the queen of everything. So what's the plan? He asked. I swallowed. I want to change the venue, I said. To somewhere she didn't pick. Somewhere that feels like us. And I don't want to tell her. He blinked. You want to move the entire wedding, he said slowly. Without telling my mom. Who is paying for the gardens? Yes, I said. We can still use their money. Just differently. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he did something I'll never forget. He laughed. Not a mean laugh. A disbelieving, almost relieved laugh. You know what? He said. Let's do it. The logistics were tricky. We had 3 months. The garden's contract had a cancellation fee. But crucially, the contract was in our names, not his parents'. We were the clients. They were just writing the checks. I called the gardens. Hi, I said. We need to talk about our reservation for August 12th. The coordinator, a polished woman named Claire, pulled up our file. Everything looks on track, she said. Is there a problem? Yes and no, I said. We're not canceling the wedding. But we are canceling the wedding here. She sounded surprised but not offended. May I ask why? She said. I debated how much to say. In the end, I went with honesty. My future mother-in-law insisted we book here and then started controlling everything, I said. She just threw away my wedding dress because she said I was too fat to wear it. I can't get married in a place that feels like hers, not ours. There was a pause. Then Claire said quietly, I'm so sorry. That's awful, Di. Is there any way we can reduce the cancellation fee? We're willing to forfeit the deposit if we have to. It's just a lot of money to burn. She thought for a moment. Well, she said, I can't refund the deposit. But if you'd like, we can convert it into a credit you can use for something else. A smaller event, a future party, or even a reception only? An idea sparked. What if, I said slowly, we kept the reservation, but only told a few people to show up here? She laughed, half shocked. You mean, like a decoy wedding? She said. Something like that, I said. Let me talk to my fiancé and get back to you. Ethan loved it. So we tell my mom the ceremony is still at the gardens, he said, eyes gleaming. She shows up with her friends, all dressed up, and there's nothing. Or just a very small cocktail thing, I said. Meanwhile, our real ceremony is somewhere else. With the people who actually support us. He shook his head in disbelief. You're diabolical, he said. I love you. Do you think it's too mean? I asked. He thought about it. She threw away your dress and called you fat, he said. She's been bullying you for months. Honestly, this is merciful. We high-fived over takeout. Then we got to work. Step 1. Find a new venue. We went back to my original favorite, the barn. Miraculously, they still had our date open. Apparently, a smaller wedding had canceled due to a family emergency. We can do a ceremony and reception here, the coordinator said. It'll be tight on planning, but the space is ready. We put down a deposit that night. This time with my parents' help. My dad said, if it gets my girl away from that woman's claws, it's the best money I've ever spent. Mom high-fived him. Step 2. Guest list. We didn't want to exclude Ethan's whole family. Just the flying monkeys who orbited Linda and parroted her every opinion. We sat down with 2 lists. List A. People invited to the real ceremony and reception at the barn. List B. People invited only to a cocktail celebration at the gardens later that evening. My family, our close friends, Ethan's supportive cousins and his sweet Aunt May went on List A. Linda, her snobby bridge club friends, and a few relatives who'd made fat jokes about me went on List B. We updated the wedding website with the new venue but put it behind a password and only sent the password to List A. For List B, we mailed elegant cards. Please join us for a cocktail celebration honoring Ethan and Aunt Hannah's marriage at the Gardens at Oak Hill, 7:30 p.m. No mention of ceremony. No mention of wedding. If they read closely, they'd see it was just a party. We knew they wouldn't. They saw the Gardens and honoring their marriage and assumed they were the main event. Step 3. Communications. We told Linda, nothing. We let her assume everything was as originally planned. Anytime she asked about details, we gave non-committal answers. How's the seating chart? She'd ask. Still working on it, we'd say. What song are you dancing to for your mother's son dance? She asked Ethan. You'll see, he said. We turned the comments off on the wedding website. We asked our list of guests not to mention the barn in any group texts. If Linda asks, just say you're excited for the big day, I told them. We'll handle the rest. Most of them grinned. A few older relatives looked nervous. Isn't this deceptive? Aunt May asked gently. So is pretending to support a bride while calling her fat and destroying her dress, Mom said. Sometimes you have to match energy. Meanwhile, I needed a new dress. Maria at the boutique was furious when I told her what happened. She did what? She said. I remember that woman. She was trouble. I brought in the ruined gown. She examined it, lips pressed tight. We can't salvage this, she said. The fabric stained and stretched. But she disappeared into the back and came out with another dress. It was similar in cut, but with different lace. I ordered this for another bride who changed her mind, she said. It's close to your size. We can alter it. I'll give you a steep discount. I tried it on. It wasn't the one, but it was close. And this time, I insisted on storing it at my parents' house. Mom put it in the back of her closet behind winter coats and old prom dresses. I'd like to see Linda try to get through me, she said, cracking her knuckles. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a study in double lives. By day, I answered Linda's texts about floral arrangements at the Gardens and pretended I cared about whether the napkins matched the drapes there. By night, I worked with the barn coordinator to finalize our real plans. We hired a food truck that served tacos and mac and cheese. We made playlists. We built a photo wall with childhood pictures of us, none of which included Linda. I felt a little like a spy. A plus-size bride 007. Ethan and I had a few moments of guilt. Is this going to blow up our entire relationship with your mom? I asked. It might, he said. But honestly, that might not be a bad thing. We talked about boundaries. About how our marriage was our own. About what kind of grandparents we wanted for our future kids. I'm not cutting her off forever, I said. I just need her to understand there are consequences for how she treats me. And if humiliation in front of her friends doesn't do it, he said, nothing will. The day of the wedding, the sky was annoyingly perfect. Sunny. Slight breeze. We got ready at my parents' house. In the kitchen, Mom and my aunts arranged wildflower bouquets. In the living room, my cousin did my hair in loose waves with a few pieces pinned back. Tasha helped me into the dress. You look like revenge, she said, grinning. Very bridal revenge. At noon, a shuttle picked up our list of guests and took them to the barn. We'd worded their invitations carefully. Ceremony at 2 p.m. Reception to follow. Please keep details off social media until after 8 p.m. Most of them knew why. Ethan got ready at his friend Matt's place. They arrived at the barn a few minutes before me. When I stepped out of the car and saw the venue all set up, flowers, chairs, I almost cried. This was what I'd wanted all along. Not marble floors and chandeliers. Just wood and light and people who loved us. The ceremony was short and perfect. We cried. We laughed. We kissed. At exactly 2:23 p.m., we were legally married. Linda had no idea. Meanwhile, at the Gardens, a very different scene was unfolding. We know this because later, one of Ethan's cousins showed us security footage on his phone and filled us in. Linda arrived at 1:45 p.m. in a champagne-colored floor-length gown that definitely violated the don't upstage the bride rule. Her hair was professionally done. Her makeup screamed, I'm the second main character. She swept into the lobby with two of her friends and Ethan's dad trailing behind. Where is everyone? She asked the front desk. The poor coordinator on duty, who had been briefed on the cocktail event at 7:30 a.m., blinked. For which event, ma'am? She asked. The Collins Harper wedding, Linda said. My son is the groom. The coordinator checked her clipboard. We have you down for a cocktail celebration this evening, she said. But the ceremony is not scheduled to be here today. Linda laughed, high and brittle. That's ridiculous, she said. We booked the gardens months ago. Show me the ballroom. They must already be setting up. The coordinator, confused, took her to the ballroom. It was empty. No chairs. No flowers. No arch. Just polished floors and a handful of staff setting up for someone else's corporate event that night. Linda's smile cracked. There must be a mistake, she said. My son's wedding is today. Here. The coordinator double-checked the file. Ma'am, she said gently. Your contract was changed last month. The ceremony space was released. You still have a reservation for a cocktail reception at 7:30 a.m. in the smaller room. She showed Linda the signed amendment. Ethan's signature. My signature. Linda's hands shook. What do you mean changed? She said. Changed to what? Where are they? The coordinator, bless her, said, I believe that's a question for your son. Linda called Ethan. He didn't pick up. We were in the middle of family photos at the barn. Our phones on Do Not Disturb. She called me. Straight to voicemail. She texted. Where are you? This isn't funny. Answer your phone. I didn't see any of it until much later. At 7:30 a.m., a modest but nice cocktail reception started at the gardens. A few of Linda's friends, some distant relatives, and Ethan's dad showed up. They drank champagne and whispered. Linda sat in the corner, shaking with rage, waiting. We did not. Back at the barn, our reception was everything I'd wanted. We ate tacos and cake. We danced under string lights. People kicked off their shoes and played cornhole in the grass. At one point, Ethan tapped his glass. Can I have everyone's attention, he said. My wife has something to say. I shot him a look. We hadn't planned a speech for me. He smiled. You don't have to, he whispered. But if you want to, this is your chance. I took a deep breath. Hi, I said into the mic. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Hannah. Former fiancée. Current wife. Laughter. I just want to say thank you, I continued. To everyone who came out here, to this venue, to celebrate with us. You made a choice to show up for us, not for appearances, not for a fancy country club, but for our actual marriage. That means more than you know. I paused. Some of you know bits and pieces of what's been going on behind the scenes, I said. I won't rehash all of it, because this is supposed to be a happy day. But I will say this, if someone ever makes you feel like you have to shrink yourself to deserve love, or a dress, or a wedding, you don't. My voice wobbled slightly. Love that only exists if you fit into a certain size or a certain box isn't love, I said. It's control. And it's okay to walk away from that. Or, in our case, I smiled, drive away to another venue. People laughed and clapped. Ethan kissed my temple. We didn't mention Linda by name. We didn't have to. Everyone there knew exactly who I meant. We drove home that night exhausted and happy. When I finally turned my phone back on, it exploded with notifications. Texts, voicemails, missed calls. From Linda. How dare you humiliate me like this? I sat at that country club for hours waiting. My friends were asking where the bride was. You are ungrateful and cruel. I will never forgive you. From Ethan's dad. I don't agree with how Linda treated you. I also don't agree with how today was handled. But you're adults now. Work it out. From a few of her friends. Wow. Just wow. From Ethan's cousin. Your mom's face when she realized the wedding wasn't there was priceless. 10/10 would watch that reality show. From my mom, proud of you. Sleep. We'll deal with the fallout tomorrow. Ethan read them over my shoulder. He sighed. Here we go, he said. The fallout was intense. The next week was a blur of angry phone calls and Facebook drama. Linda posted a vague status about entitled brides who forget who paid for their big day. Her friends commented with things like, so sorry you had to go through that, you deserved better, and kids these days have no respect. I stayed off social media. Instead, Ethan and I had some hard conversations. I know you lost a lot of respect for my mom, he said. So did I. But she's still my mother. I don't want to cut her off completely. I don't want that either, I said. But I can't pretend this didn't happen. I can't pretend she didn't throw away my dress and try to control everything. He nodded. We set some rules, he said. Visiting on our terms. No more body comments. No more wedding relitigation. If she breaks those rules, we walk. And if she never apologizes? I asked. Then she doesn't get grandkids' sleepovers, he said. Or holidays. Or access to our life beyond the surface. It sounded harsh. It was also fair. We wrote an email together. Linda, we understand you're upset about how the wedding was handled. We're not thrilled with how you treated Hannah either. You threw away her dress and repeatedly insulted her body and choices. We chose to have our ceremony somewhere that felt safe and supportive. We used the country club deposit you offered for a small celebration that you and your friends were invited to. You chose to think it was more than that. We'd like to move forward, but only if you can respect the following. No comments about Hannah's body, weight, or appearance. No attempts to control events in our lives under the guise of gifts. No talking about the wedding except to say congratulations. If you can't do that, we'll need space. Ethan and Aunt Hannah, she replied with a 3-paragraph rant about ingratitude and public humiliation. She didn't apologize. She didn't acknowledge what she'd done. She repeated that she'd saved me from embarrassing myself in that dress. At the bottom she wrote, I will never forget what you did to me at the gardens. Ethan wrote back 2 words. Nor will we. Then we muted her. Over time, things cooled slightly. We saw her at a few family gatherings, birthdays, his cousin's baby shower. She was civil. Frosty, but civil. She never directly insulted my weight again. She just made comments about health and discipline in general, which I ignored. When we eventually had our first child, she tried to ramp up her involvement. Mom groups will tell you that becoming a grandmother sometimes softens people like Linda. It did. A little. But the main difference wasn't her. It was us. We had boundaries now. We weren't afraid to say, no, that doesn't work for us, and leave. We never gave her unsupervised overnight time. We didn't let her dictate holidays. We sent her photos and let her visit on our schedule. Every time she started to push, Ethan would say, Mom, remember the gardens. We're not doing that again. She'd huff. But she'd back off. Looking back, do I think changing the venue without telling her was extreme? Would I do it again? Also yes. Because here's what I've learned. People like Linda count on your fear. Fear of causing a scene. Fear of ruining family relationships. Fear of being labeled the difficult one. They use that fear to get away with things no stranger could. If a boutique owner had thrown my wedding dress in the trash and called me fat, everyone would have told me to sue. But because it was family, I was supposed to swallow it for the sake of peace. Peace that only existed if I kept quiet. So I stopped being quiet. I didn't shout. I didn't throw a public tantrum. I did something much more upsetting to someone like her. I quietly took back control. I moved the wedding. I married the man I love surrounded by people who see me as more than a dress size. And I let her show up to a fancy building in a champagne gown, and an empty ballroom, a perfect metaphor for the kind of love she was offering. Expensive, showy, and ultimately hollow. My mother-in-law threw away my wedding dress because I was too fat. So I threw away her illusion of control. Right along with her reservation at the gardens.